In this video, I'll be taking a close look at the Zamberlan Lynx boots and giving you my opinion on them after the first few months of use. So why did I buy these boots? Well, I bought them primarily for wilderness backpacking, and there were several reasons why I picked this particular pair. I first tried these boots on last year before my first wilderness backpacking trip in Lapland. At the time, I decided on another boot, as I wasn't sure whether my Lapland backpacking trip would be a one-off, and these seemed too specialised, although they're actually designed and intended for another purpose entirely, but I'll come back to that in a minute. They were also pretty expensive. The boots that I went for didn't perform all that well in the wilderness, getting wet on the inside, staying that way and giving me plenty of blisters. My wife did buy a pair of Zamberlan boots before the same trip, and they performed so much better in the same conditions. This prompted me to go for the Lynx boots before the next adventure. So the actual purpose for which these boots were designed and intended is countryside, mountain and big game hunting, hence the camouflage optics and the name. But guess what? Spending long hours hiking through tough terrain in all weather conditions is applicable to both hunting and wilderness backpacking. The outdoor shop from which I bought the boots has nothing to do with hunting, but when the owner went for a trip to Zamberlan HQ and saw these boots, he thought they would be perfect for his own Lapland adventures and decided to stock them to sell specifically for this purpose. When I went to buy the boots, Zamberlan had just released a new version of the Lynx, and I got a hefty discount on the old model. The only difference that I and the shop owner could tell was that the new version has a scuff guard over the toes and has an ever so slightly wider fit. If you take a look at the state of the toe area of my boots after only a few months, you'll see why the scuff guard was added. As for the wider fit, well, that will just depend on your own foot shape. I have wide feet and the older model is a decent fit for me, which is quite unusual for Italian shoes and boots. So let's have a look at some of the details of these boots. Made in Italy, they feature a nubuck leather outer layer treated with a water repellent. There's a Gore-Tex membrane to give waterproofing and breathability. There's a Vibram outer sole for grip and traction on various terrain, and cushioned multi-layered inner soles. My boots weigh in at 949 grams for a single boot in EU size 46. That's 33.5 ounces for a US size 12. Zamberlan offers two different versions of this boot, the traditional laced version, retailing at €329, and the boa fit system version, retailing at €349 here in Europe. Zamberlan also make a similar boot with a slightly lower cut, and this one's called the Leopard. So, how have I tested these boots, and what have I found good about them? The first outing that they had was as my primary non-wading footwear on my fishing week in Lapland. Whilst not doing any major hikes in them there, they were used in bogs, brush, rocky terrain, as well as along wet and muddy riverbanks. They were also my travel footwear, going from Central Europe in the mid to high 30s, through airports, on planes, to the far north of Europe, which was barely above freezing. I then did some warm weather hikes in the Swiss mountains, where there are some very steep climbs and descents. Finally, I wore them for a wilderness backpacking trip in Lapland, through varied terrain and in mixed weather. There were marshes, fells, stream crossings, forest and tundra. In the hot weather, I didn't get the feeling that my feet were overheating, and in contrast to my previous boots, I didn't get a single blister or feel the need to remove them during a hike to air my feet. The stiffness of these boots gave great support on uneven terrain, though they always felt comfortable even when travelling in them. Despite the bogs, stream crossings and wet weather, these boots remained dry on the inside, which was a huge difference for me. The outer leather also dries pretty quickly after getting wet, and that's a big help with the breathability. The grip on these boots is superb. I was a bit concerned when facing a set of wet rocks for the first time that I needed to hop across to cross a stream with a 25+ kilo rucksack on my back. But I didn't slip in the slightest bit, and this was the same on all terrain, except for maybe loose rocks where no amount of grip will help. I also really like that these boots are so lightweight for the size. It really doesn't feel like I'm wearing a big, highly supportive boot when they're on. So those are the positives. What about the negatives? Well, there really aren't many, so I'm going to be nitpicking here. While the fit was snug and highly supportive, it wasn't absolutely perfect for my feet. On steep descents, my feet did occasionally slip forward with the toes hitting the front of the boot. This was pretty rare though and didn't hurt or cause any damage. Another negative has already been resolved, and I mentioned it earlier. With the leather on the toe area getting pretty scuffed up by tough terrain, the new scuff cover's a plus. If you're not using these boots for hunting, the camouflage design could be a bit divisive, though personally, I like it. Finally, these boots are not cheap. However, they are made in Italy with high quality materials. You're paying for quality and for workers to be paid a decent wage and have decent working conditions. So, are these the best wilderness backpacking boots? Well, I've tried on and tested many different boots on test tracks. These were by far and away the best fitting and most stable boots for me. Out in the field, I have limited experience with different boots, but these satisfied all of my wishes, and the difference to my previous pair was night and day. Therefore, in my opinion, yes, they are the best wilderness backpacking boots. If you have another pair that you think are better, or if you're considering buying these boots and found this review helpful, please let me know in the comments below. If you got this far and enjoyed the video, please do leave a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more outdoors content and equipment reviews. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.